June 2006. I can't think of anything special that was going on in my life at that time. So let's just get to the books. The first book I read in June of 2006 was The Book of All Flesh, edited by James Lowder. This is just an anthology of zombie stories. I believe there's 20 stories in all. And you've got authors such as Maynard and Sims. I love Maynard and Sims. Scott Nicholson and Christine Morgan. Apparently, this is the first time I read Christine Morgan. I didn't even realize it. Big fan of her work. I thought the first thing I ever read was Sperm Jackers from Hell. But apparently, I read a short story which has the same title as a short story collection that she has. That I can't remember the exact name of. But I've read that short story collection. It's something of the dead. It's a zombie story, obviously. Anyway, The Book of All Flesh, edited by James Lowder. This was the first in a series of books. So some others may come up at some point in the future. But let's move on. The second book that I read in June of 2006 was DC Universe Inheritance by Devin Grayson. I like these covers. And in this book, Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, tries to assassinate somebody in Gotham. So Batman, Green Arrow, and Aquaman are going to try and stop him. Also involved their former sidekicks. Batman's was Robin, who became Nightwing, Dick Grayson. Green Arrow had Arsenal, Roy Harper, and Aquaman had Tempest, whose real name I don't know. But they're involved. It's a worldwide race to stop Deathstroke from destroying Gotham, killing more people. There's tons and tons of characters in here. As we get, backstory and things for all these different characters. But of course, it's more about that. It's mostly about that mentor relationship that these three heroes had with their three young sidekicks, who went on to become heroes on their own. I dig this one. It's up there. There were 4 books in this DC Universe series, and I think this one is one of the better of the 4. So DC Universe Inheritance, Devin Grayson. Let's see. Then we have The Book of the Dead by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. This is the 7th book in the Pendergast series, and Pendergast is in a maximum security prison for a murder he didn't commit. The person's not even really dead. That person being his brother, his evil brother. But there's a new Egyptian exhibit that's going to open up at the museum and at a museum. I assume it's in New York. I don't recall. And of course, there's a curse. Well, what's Pendergast going to do when he's in a prison? You got to read the book to find out. I love the Pendergast series. Huge fan of Lincoln and Child's stuff. And as always, every time this comes up, I really need to finish the entire Pendergast series because I haven't read all of them. And they're still coming out. Excuse me. Still coming out. Apparently there's 22 of them, according to Amazon. But The Book of the Dead, Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. Then we have a book that I didn't look up. Here, you can watch real-time work here. Somehow I skipped this one, so this is what I do when I make this list, and I don't remember what the book is. I go to Amazon and I look up what the book is. Let's see what we get. I'm pretty sure, yes, I had a vague idea what this was. So the next book that I read in June of 2006 is Already Dead by Charlie Houston, and it is the first of the Joe Pitt novels. Apparently, there are 5 of them. Um, so, you know what? Let's see. Those stories you hear, the ones about things that only come out at night, things that feed on blood, feed on us, got news for you. They're true. Only it's not like the movies or Old Man Stoker's storybook. It's worse, especially if you happen to be one of them. Just ask Joe Pitt. Let's see. Lurching around. There's a shambler on the loose. Some fool who got himself infected with a flesh eating bacteria is lurching around, trying to munch on folks' brains. Joe hates shamblers, but he's still the one who has to deal with them. That's just the kind of life he has. Except afterlife might be a better word. Let's see. I didn't read that last sentence very well. So I think Joe Pitt's a vampire private eye. Vampire, Joe's one of them. He's not happy about it. Stronger and faster, tough as nails, hard to kill. But spending his nights trying to score a pint of blood to feed the virus that's eating at him isn't his idea of a good time. And Joe doesn't make it any easier on himself. Going his own way, refusing to ally with the clans that run the undead underside of Manhattan. It ain't easy. It's worse once he gets mixed up with the Coalition, the city's most powerful clan, and finds himself searching for a poor little rich girl who's gone missing in Alphabet City. Now the Coalition and the girl's high society parents are breathing down his neck. Anarchist vampires are pushing him around, and a crazy vampire cult is stalking him. No time to complain, though. Gotta find that girl and kill that shambler before the whips come down. The whip comes down, and before the sun comes up. So, as I said, let's get out of there. This is the first in a series about a vampire PI, I believe, from Charlie Houston. His Caught Stealing trilogy was absolutely fantastic, although at this point I'd only read the first 2 so far. The third one will be coming up. I did not think this was as good as those books. A fine read. Charlie Houston's a fine author, but I don't know that I read any more of the Joe Pitt books. But if you like that kind of thing, Vampire PI, maybe I'll give them another try. But Already Dead, Charlie Houston. I don't know how I missed that. And I don't know what this video is going to look like. So let's move on. I'm going to lump 2 books together. One of them being the penultimate book. I had to say it. Penultimate book that I read in June. But it's a duology. It's by the same author. So the next 2 books that I read in June 2006, Possessions by James A. Moore and Rabid Growth by James A. Moore. As I said, these 2 books go together, and they were published by Leisure. The main character is Chris Corrin. So in the first book, in Possessions, Chris's mother dies, and some weird stuff starts happening. There's creatures running around. They start coming after Chris. They're after the Western Key or the Golden Key, and Chris gets his ass kicked up and down the book. He wins the lottery, $1 million, but he's, with all the paperwork and everything going on, he's not seeing any money, and he's got to take care of his younger sister. All sorts of stuff going on. And then in Rabid Growth, spoilers for Possessions, he defeats the big bad. There is a big bad in Possessions. It's defeated. But now, those people who came in contact with that big bad, something is changing them. Chris has to deal with this again. That's basically it. I was a little disappointed in this. Up to this point, I hadn't read a ton of James A. Moore, but I very much enjoyed what I had read. These felt like rather rushed young adult books. I don't remember how graphic, if they were very graphic or anything. I just remember that they were fine, although there seems to be a period when I don't know if it was just certain authors or Leisure books as a whole was having problems with, I don't know, that they were specifically problems with the copy editor or proofreader or whomever. Um, Lots of problems with the books themselves. The just tons of like typos, missing words, things like that. I seem to recall plot holes in these stories. Um, if you're a fan of James A. Moore, if you've read these, let me know what your thoughts on them are. As I said, I'm a fan generally of his writing, but these two books, of everything I've read from James A. Moore, these two would be the last that I would recommend. And the last that I don't have them now. I would have shown them to you, obviously, if I did. Uh, the last that I would pick up if I don't need a complete James A. Moore collection and don't see any reason why I would pick these up again. But for completists, they're out there somewhere. And again, if you've read them, please let me know what your thoughts are. But that's Possessions and Rabid Growth by James A. Moore. The final book that I read in June of 2006 is a book with a very long title, very light ink here, Bizarro and Other Strange Manifestations of the Art of Dan Peraro by Dan Peraro. Bizarro is a one-panel comic. Been a fan of it since the 80s. Got to meet Dan Peraro once. And so, like The Far Side, but more cerebral, I suppose. Although The Far Side can be pretty cerebral. But definitely bizarre. I mean, it's called Bizarro. A little darker, maybe, than The Far Side, but again, The Far Side could be dark. But this book is a collection of a bunch of Bizarro cartoons, as well as just a bunch of sketches, paintings, photographs, just the art of Dan Peraro, as well as little autobiographical bits where he talks about his process and his life and different things. Which is why I included it in this list. If it had just been like a book, a collection of the Bizarro cartoon, which I've read tons of those, that wouldn't have gone on this list. But because it's got these autobiographical bits, and I don't remember how much actual writing there is in it, but there is writing, so that's why it's included. But I'm a huge fan of the Bizarro comic strip. I still follow him on Facebook, where he posts new cartoons. So Bizarro and Other Strange Manifestations of the Art of Dan Peraro by Dan Peraro. And that's it. That is everything that I read in June of 2006. Question for this video. I don't know. I did not think ahead. What's your favorite comic strip? Now we're talking newspaper comic strips here. That's what Bizarro was. I suppose still is. And mine would probably be Bizarro at this point. Growing up, I don't know if a lot of people even get newspapers anymore. My parents still get it every once in a while. But growing up, of course, we got the newspaper every day. I was a paper boy. I delivered the paper every day for years. And of course, the first thing I would go to was the comics. Read everything from Heathcliff and Family Circus, that kind of stuff. Pretty much everything except the soap opera-y ones like Mary Worth. But I did read the Daily Spider-Man comic strip. And I don't remember if we had... we must have had the Star Wars newspaper comic strip. But I loved The Far Side, and I loved Bizarro. I think the Spider-Man strip, and maybe Dick Tracy as well. I know there were certain strips that I would cut out every day and paste, literally using Elmer's glue, paste them into a notebook. So I was sort of making my own comic strip book. I have no idea whatever happened to those. But yes, if I had to pick now, I would absolutely say Bizarro. It's a lot of fun. It's very bizarre. There's almost always, I'm not going to say always, little hidden jokes or symbols or things inside the panel. Like he'll always put a pie somewhere in the panel, or he'll always put an eyeball or an alien somewhere in the panel. I did say always that time, didn't I? Well, what are you gonna do? Yeah, let's go with Bizarro. So many. I'm sure there's plenty I'm forgetting. I mean, I could just sit here and just rattle off the tons that I remember. I liked Mother Goose and Grimm because I thought it was funny and it was dark, not like super dark, terrible, but it was a dog and a goose in a fairy tale land. But I don't know. I enjoyed Mother Goose and Grimm. Doonesbury, very political. So as a youngster, I didn't get it, but I very much enjoyed it when I got older. Uh, but what about you? Did you read comic strips in the newspaper? Again, what were your favorites? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. That's all I've got for you this week. So until next week, read more books.